Bantucentric is recommended for listeners over the age of 16 as it may contain foul language and/or mature subject matter. This podcast is brought to you by Gifted Sounds Network and ImagineOnly Productions.
And as always, stay woke.
And stay Bantu.
And as always, 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 stay woke.
And stay Bantu.
Welcome to Bantucentric. My name is Buck Rivers, and with me as always is my co-host, Cheyenne Finch.
We're a couple of Bantus discussing movies, music, relationships, and pretty much everything else.
Yes, and today we have a special guest. We'd like to welcome St. Clair and Detrick-Jules.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me.
Hey, how you doing?
Thanks for coming.
I'm great. How are you?
We're doing good.
Okay, so basically, St. Clair is about to publish a book called Dear Chloe about natural hair. And what we want to talk about first is what inspired you to create this book. I know it's focusing on photography and getting like real women in their natural element and really just reaching out to Black women, or women of color. So just tell us a little bit about how you got started with your project.
Yeah, so the book is called Dear Chloe, Love Letters to My Little Sister. I have 3 little siblings, and one of them, Chloe, she's 6 years old now. And for a couple years now, starting when she was 4, she got really self-conscious about her afro, and she has this beautiful afro, but she lives like in a majority white area. She goes to a majority white school, and she really doesn't see herself represented anywhere in terms of like hair and skin color, and so that's really hard for her. And you know, she's cried about it. She's been really upset. You know, her classmates have made fun of her hair, and so I was really upset about it, and then I felt like I had to do something, right? Because my first thought was like, oh, wouldn't it be great if mainstream media started showing like Black women with afros? Yeah. And then my next thought was like, oh, well, that's probably not going to happen knowing mainstream media, you know, at least not as quickly as we need it to. And so I decided to create a photography book featuring Black women with natural hair to show Chloe that she's not alone, that there's this huge community of Black women with natural hair. And as I worked on it more, it sort of, I guess, got bigger and bigger in my head. And so it's for Chloe, and it's also for all the other Black girls and women out there who have ever felt like they're not enough being who they are.
That's great. That's great. That's I don't personally identify with that section, you know, that struggle exactly. But just I know that just body image issues in general are a big deal. And then just that kind of representation, you know, I feel like that's something that, I don't know, I've personally dealt with a lot of kind of being a guy in that same ballpark, you know, the expectation of me and what I should be interested in as well, you know, and kind of noticing that, I don't know, around maybe high school, college time, that's kind of when the natural hair movement really got started, you know, and that being a thing that was like, this is beautiful, you know, and that sort of coding how I see women because I was in that particular time in my life, you know. And so I think that I think it's really interesting, and talking to my mom and being like, hey mom, you should go natural, you know, and she's like, you know, no, I've been doing weed my whole life, like she doesn't feel normal when she's not, you know, doing a weave, you know. I don't know, I think it's a really good thing that you're doing.
Thank you. I think, yeah, and a lot of times I think it is our generation, at least from the women I've talked to, a lot of times it seems like it's our generation who is convincing their parents, you know, their mothers, to also consider going natural as well, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, I tried having the natural conversation with my mom. She was raised on the perm, and then she raised me on the perm. So the perm has just kind of been like the family staple, as they call it, the creamy crack. So my mom said, honestly, last time she saw her natural hair, she was pregnant with me. Oh. So
Wow.
she's forgotten her texture. She's like, I don't even know what it looks like, but I'm fine, and I'm not giving it up. So, yeah, that's just like the culture that she grew up in. So definitely like her generation and like the older generations, they're kind of stuck in what they were raised in. But I think the important message today is that your natural hair is beautiful. Even if, whether you choose to rock your natural hair or not, natural hair is beautiful. Because too often the message has been that natural hair isn't beautiful, and that the goal should be to straighten it all the time. And that's what I believe needs to be stopped. Like, that's what needs to be changed. The message, no judgment anywhere, just making sure that everyone feels comfortable in what they choose to do. But while going through your creative process in this project, I was wondering, did you come across any challenges with like finding women for your book, or just trying to make the project happen?
So I guess one of my problems was stopping myself, because it started out, I didn't intend to have 100 women in my book. I intended for maybe, I don't know, 25, 50 at most. And I reached out to people various ways. Like, I reached out to people I already knew personally, and then I reached out to some people through social media. I reached out to some of my mom's students, because she teaches at an HBCU, so she has a lot of students with natural hair. And I think that, like, as I kept going, I would work on my book a couple months, like I would edit photos, I would transcribe the interviews with these women, and then I would find more women, with beautiful natural hair, and I was like, oh, I need to take their pictures too for my book. So I feel like I kept on going, and then eventually I was like, okay, I need to put like a stop. I need to say, okay, this is like the 100 women that are going to be in my book. But I think that is a good thing, because it just shows how, like you said, how big the natural hair movement is now. Like, there's so many Black women with natural hair, that it was, I think finding women was probably the easiest part, and then stopping myself from taking more photos was the hard part.
Have you found like any opposition when it comes to kind of getting these women on board? Because that was something I was going to ask both of you, is just from older women that is there opposition to the movement, or is it just like I was saying with my mom, she doesn't really feel comfortable in her natural hair, so she couldn't see herself doing it, but she's not like telling my sister, you need to straighten your hair. She doesn't think anything bad about it. She just doesn't see it for herself. How has that worked for you guys?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think everybody who I reached out to has, at least some level of acceptance and love for their natural hair. But I think even within the community of Black women with natural hair, there is still, some of the Black women in my book are just completely like, I love my hair, there's no going back. I'm completely confident. And then for some people, self-love isn't necessarily as linear. So, since then, some of them have gotten their hair straightened again, they've gotten weaves again, and again, not that there's, not that that's a bad thing. But I think that it just goes to show that they're not always like super comfortable with their natural hair, if that makes sense. And I feel the same way. Like, there are times where I'm like, I love my natural hair, and then there are times when I will be in front of the mirror and I'll like pull my hair down so that it's straight, and I'll look to see how long it is, and then I actually think about this book, and I think about my sister, and I think, no, I can't straighten my hair, because for me personally, if I were to straighten my hair, it would be, I think, to adhere to Eurocentric beauty standards, and that's not what I want to teach my sister. And yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Shy?
For me, like I said, I come from a family where it's like perm is the culture, like perm is the wave. But I remember there were when I lived in Las Vegas, the climate was very dry, so I couldn't keep up a perm in that climate and keep my hair on my head. It was breaking off all the time. Every time I thought my hair would start growing, it would just snap off. Plus I was on the swim team, and I was in the sun all the time because I was playing sports. There was a lot of damaging factors, so I had to go natural for a while. And and like keeping up my hair, trying to find a style that worked for me. My mom was working with me, but we were having a hard time styling it. So it wasn't that I never hated my natural hair. I never recall ever feeling like, oh, I wish my hair wasn't like this. I never felt that. And that's one thing I appreciate from my family. Though they like the perm, they've never looked down on natural hair. They've never said that there was something wrong if your hair was kinky. Like, it's never been negative. It's just been a preference. So when I had my natural hair, I just remember wishing it was easier to style, like wishing there were cuter things I could do in less time. Like if I wanted curls, I had to like sit down and put all the rollers in, or my mom would sit down and braid my hair, and like it would sit overnight and then wake up in the morning and have the curls. So when I moved back east, I went back to the perm because I was in a more moisturized climate. And my hair could be healthier, it could thrive more. But I stuck with like a light perm. I didn't want my hair too straight. I just wanted it easier to manage, something I could quickly throw together and go out to work. So that's kind of just like what my hair journey's been. I'm just somebody that likes to throw my style together and go out the door. And I found that was harder to do with my natural texture. And even right now, like I have a perm, but my hair is still curly. It's not straight, but it's manageable. So this is more of my preference. I'm able to, as you can see, like I have it up in 2 buns and just curly in the back. And this style takes like 5 minutes to throw together. I put in all my moisturizers and my creams, and I just go out about my day, and this works for me. So yeah, it's never been a negative journey, which I appreciate, like, the women in my family for not falling so deep into perm culture that they just kind of look down on natural hair. It's just always been a personal preference. Okay. And my grandma goes back and forth between whether or not she wants it natural or perm. Monday, she wants it natural. Friday, she's like, I'm gonna put the perm back in. She doesn't know. But she owns all the hair products. So it's really just been a journey of trying to figure out what works for us. And I think I found what works for me.
Okay. I think it's a good thing that you don't have any negative connotation toward either one. But just during the conversation, I was thinking about, honestly, actually a point at which I actually fit into this. Because the whole emo thing was going on in high school, and I begged my mom to perm my hair at one point because I wanted to do the whole, like, fringe thing, you know?
Side bangs.
Yeah, it was, oh god, that or like, I think with Sasuke from, I think it's Sasuke, right? Naruto.
Yeah.
But
Sasuke.
he's got like 2 long sideburns, but then the hair like spikes up in the back or something. Yeah. And there was this black guy on YouTube who was showing a tutorial for how to do it. And he had his hair, you know, like that, and it was down, and it was all spiked up, you know, and it was so much product because he was black. Like, he had to do a lot for it, but it was permed. Like, that was the thing he didn't say, which I didn't understand. I was, like, showing my mom the video, and she's like, well, you have to perm your hair first. Like, you can't. I was like, let me get this gel stuff and start, and it'll turn into Sasuke. Like, no, it's not how it works. But my mom refused to do it, and I was so upset.
I'm glad that she refused
so
to do it.
I was so upset.
I'm like, but Mom, I want to be Sasuke.
Yeah, but a lot of that came from having white friends who were like, you can't be emo because you're black, you know? And so it was a lot of, you know, even though I know this is something that mainly affects women, just in the conversation, I was like, oh yeah, like I saw those hairstyles as being interesting, whereas just having an afro, that wasn't, you know? And so it wasn't manageable. It wasn't something that was worth, you know, seeing in whatever it is, you know? And so I guess that was the question that I had next of being like, I don't think that white people see afro, some white people do, I guess, but just like, I don't think that white people grow up seeing black hairstyles and then being upset that their hair doesn't do that, you know, and then finding ways to make their hair do that. So in this sense,
except for the ones that do locks.
Well, yeah, it's like locks and that kind of thing, but just a fro, just the texture itself, you know. Is it that our hairstyles are harder to manage, or is it just that's just how it is? Like when I had my fro, it was kind of misshapen. It wasn't a perfect circle, but that's what it was. And I looked at it and was like, this isn't presentable, you know? And so if I was to perm my hair, it'd be easier, but it'd be more presentable based on the ideals that I already have pre-established, you know? So is it, because I've heard other women say the same thing, where it's like, I love natural styles, but I just don't have time to make it look good. Well, the way it looks when you climbed out of bed, maybe that looks good, you know? It's not how it looks, it's that your mental state has this set of hairstyles as being good, and this set of hairstyles as not being styles at all, but being bedhead or being nappy or being whatever. And so maybe that's the issue, you know, not so much that it's the preference, but just that it's like all hair, even the hair that we think looks bad, looks good. Because white people, sometimes their hair is a little frizzy, but they're not like, therefore my hair is bad and I need to put chemicals in it and turn it into something else. It's just, this is just a factor of having white texture hair. So a factor of having an afro is sometimes it's a little misshapen. Go to work. Like, it's not bad. That's what it is, you know? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, they actually do have a perm that's supposed to curl your hair, which I found interesting.
Okay.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, the way that, like, in the 70s or 80s or whatever, white people wanted the curly...
They wanted to have curly hair.
Yeah, but it still wasn't a fro.
Yeah, no, it was never, like, kinky. It was just, like,
just
wavy.
really curly, But I don't know. Does any of that make sense? Because that's been the thing that I've noticed, is that it's kind of like, even though the movement is popular, there's still this idea that our natural hair is more difficult, or is just the variations of it are not presentable, and therefore it's easier to get a good looking style. I don't know, you know, maybe your hair when you were in Vegas, however it looked, that was more professional than what you could possibly do with your hair.
Oh no,
straight.
I threw a headband on it.
I don't know, but I just mean, I guess, why is it that the way that your natural hair is, why does it take you so much time to make it look presentable? Why doesn't it start out presentable?
At the time, I was being stubborn. I wouldn't cut my hair short enough where I could have just like had a small fro and it would have worked. I was trying to hold on to the permed hair that I had left. So my hair was a weird mix of my natural texture and my perm texture. So it was just like, I would just brush it back and throw like a sweatband around it and just hope that worked. And it was just a weird... It was like, it wasn't even an afro. It was more like helmet hair. Like, I went through a weird phase in high school where I just always had helmet hair.
I didn't see you much in high school in person, did I?
No. It's a good thing. Because I didn't know what to do with it. And my mom was struggling to figure out what to do with it because she wanted to perm me, and the perm was breaking my hair off, combined with the other, like, factors, and we were just all very confused. I had a phase where I put braids in for a while to let my hair grow out, but then my hair was still breaking off. Living in Vegas was a struggle.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It's not a good place for anything.
It's not. But yeah, when I was trying to, like, now, I feel like if I decided to go natural now, I would just do the big chop. It'd be real short. It'd be real curly, and I could make it cute, and it would work. But the thing is, I want to grow my hair out right now, so I'm not looking to do the big chop anytime soon. But if I did, I feel like when I'm older, maybe once I've like settled down with a family, I'm where I want to be in my career. I feel like life has kind of calmed down a bit. Then I wouldn't mind being natural. I wouldn't mind like taking the time to get to know my hair, get to know what I like in my natural texture. Like, it all just depends. Right now, I literally wake up with 5 minutes to get ready and run. I don't have time to like to figure it all out.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. And like the whole idea of hair being manageable, or like only having like 5 minutes to your hair. I think that's so cultural because like based on like what I was, talking to the women in my book about, like back in the day, pre-colonization in Africa, hair was really a really important part of their culture, and so a lot of their time was dedicated to taking care of their hair. And figuring out like there were certain like clays and things like that. I don't want to sound too ignorant, but they had a lot, like they knew a lot of things, right, that worked for their hair to help it grow, to help it stay moisturized, things like that. And to do like these really intricate hairstyles, they just took the time for that. And I think that that's one thing that's hard, is that here now we're in like a totally, this like westernized, this Western country, and our schedules are so, like the culture doesn't revolve around hair, it revolves around, or at least in the sense of like we don't think of hair as being like an important thing that our community is going to join together for. And so I think that does make it hard, because I feel like back in the day, pre-colonization, they probably wouldn't have said that their hair isn't manageable, because their society was set up so that they had a lot of time, and they had
time it takes. If white people's hair took 3-4 hours to do it, I think like offices would start work at 11 a.m. or something.
Exactly. They
that
would
would kind of
accommodate
be
it.
standard. That would be the standard. But white people can get out of bed and throw it together and get to work. And so our whole society, is built around that kind of thing. Yeah,
even now I have like my regimen, though I try to keep it as short as possible. It's still very involved. I have to know like which hair wash I'm going to use a hair mask, which one needs to be a perm. And then like after that, I put on like every night my regimen is like I'll apply growth therapy to my scalp, and then I'll apply like whatever my moisturizer is to the rest of my hair, like down to the ends. And then I wrap it up the way that I want it to be for the next day, pin it up, wrap my scarf around it, and let that soak in through the night. Wake up in the morning, spray some water in my hair. Sometimes I'll run some gel through it just to get it to like lay the way that I want it to. And then that way, because I did like my whole moisture routine the night before, it's able to work for me in the morning. Like, it's still not a simple wake up and go, but it's as short as I can get it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's something I always think about, like coming from a film background, and I don't know, it's slightly off topic, but just like there's that movie Onward that's coming out, that Pixar film, and then there was what's that movie, Bright, the Netflix movie with Will Smith and the orcs in LA and that kind of thing, where it's like fantasy world. It's like a fantasy world the way that you see like Lord of the Rings, but like a fantasy world in 2019. How would that world have progressed, if we started with dragons and stuff, Game of Thrones, how would that look? And most of the world itself looked mostly like our world, it was still LA, people were wearing Raider gear, but they were orcs, you know, and they were fairies, and it looked strange, and people didn't really like the film very much because it didn't feel like they really put a lot of effort into it. Where it's like, if you had orcs and fairies thousands and thousands of years ago, the world itself would look different. Cars would look different. Homes would look different. You know, you wouldn't still have the raiders. Everything would be changed because every aspect of life is built around that, you know? And so it's just interesting, like you were saying, to think about, you know, African culture and how if we were allowed to just live, you know, like seeing Black Panther, you know, how things are shaped, you know, their ships are kind of shaped like boats, you know, most of their weapons are spears rather than guns because they weren't colonized, that type of thing. You know, that every aspect of our lives would be different if we were allowed to either just go the way that we were going, or if somehow, you know, African society was the dominant in the world, you know, the US, white people would be trying to make their hair look like ours, you know, and they would hate that their hair takes 10 seconds to make look like their cultural styles. They would want to spend 8-9 hours sitting in somebody's lap getting their hair braided because that would just be, you know, that would be cool, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think even now there are a lot of Black hairstyles that white people, like, even though like, you know, white culture is dominant in America, there's still, I feel like there are still a lot of white people who want to, not that they want to be Black, but that they sort of want to emulate us in a way, that they want to have our culture. And so, you know, people like the Kardashians now are wearing box braids and things like that. Yeah. And people are wearing like Bantu knots. Like you said, white people are getting dreads. So things like that even though we're not the, you know, quote unquote dominant culture now, I think we still see a lot of that, which is interesting, of them, you know, wanting to, let me go to the hairstylist and get it, you know, spend a couple hours getting my hair cornrowed or something like that, you know?
Weird.
Yeah.
Which kind of brought me to my next question. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you spent some time in France, right? So how's the culture there as far as like natural hair goes compared to here?
Yeah, so my sister, my half siblings, including my sister and my dad and my stepmom, they actually all live in the south of France. So the south of France where they live, from what I've seen when I visited, really there aren't many Black people, at least not in the area that they're in. But in other parts like Paris, for example, most of the Black people I've seen there definitely have like wigs or weaves or permed hair, like including the people who are our age, right? Not even just like the generation above us, but people who are our age also. It seems like that's definitely, like, natural hair isn't as much of a movement there. But I could be wrong. I know my stepmom was telling me that there's like this natural hair festival in Paris she wants us to go to this upcoming summer. So maybe there is a movement, but I just haven't really seen it. Especially just because in the South it's mostly white.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and I guess that'd make more sense because they're more European styles, and that is in Europe. So
yeah, definitely.
Be a little more European focused. But yeah, that's kind of what that's what I was thinking it would be like, because especially since it's more like white is more dominant over there, it would make sense that would just be more of the culture, whereas America is very mixed, so you get a lot of different cultures from around the world, and it's easy to be submerged in culture here, whereas there it's kind of more specific.
I do wonder, as far as like when it comes to those types of movements, because my sister, she's in Korea teaching English, and
I remember that.
And she's talked about how, I don't know if it's so much in Korea, she was talking about this while she was in Japan, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but they got into a photo booth, and it was like a comedy photo booth, sort of like, basically it was like Snapchat filters, you know, but before that was just on your phone, you know. And all of the booths would severely lighten your skin and make your eyes a lot bigger. You know?
Oh my gosh.
It was kind of going for like the anime thing, but not necessarily a lot bigger, just big enough to make you cuter, you know, based on that sensibility. But you were in Japan, you know, and it was like, you know, lighter skin, bigger eyes, you know, that's what's attractive, that's what's cute. Trying to make the people look more like Europeans, you know, make them look more like Americans, that kind of thing.
And we have filters like that on like Instagram and Snapchat.
Yeah.
It's not like the dominant filter, but it does exist.
Exactly. And
I
so
feel like a lot of those filters do like lighten your skin. I feel
And
like
make
it's
your
weird.
eyes bigger.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so that's the thing, is that I'm kind of like, you know, with her being in Korea, she's there's this YouTube channel where they talk about black people that live in Asian countries, and they kind of interview a lot of different people. And so I don't know as far as this particular movement goes, but a lot of them have talked about, you know, having to really put in a lot of effort into maintaining their culture and maintaining their love for themselves, you know, because you're in a place where it's not like Europe or the United States, where it's still kind of a mixed bag of people. It's you, it's that black person, and then everybody's Korean, or that black person and then everybody's Japanese, you know, and so it's like, you have to be you because you're an outsider everywhere. So you can hate everything about yourself, or you can love everything about yourself all the time, you know, because either way, people are going to point it out, you know, people are going to ask you questions, people are going to grab your head, you know, that kind of thing, that you're always different. And so, you know, how do you combat different? You know, I know I got bullied a lot in school, and half the time it was like, let me just lean in and be crazier, you know, and be weirder and show people that I don't care. And the other half, I was just hating the world and hating everybody, you know, because being different, you kind of get to pick and choose whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you know. It's like how you internalize all of that, you know, difference. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a heavy topic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. How?
And I think. Oh yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, like, what other places have you been to, and have you seen any kind of progression in these types of movements? You know, in the different places you've been to.
You mean like countries?
Yeah, yeah, different countries. You know, experiencing other cultures, that type of thing. Because correct me if I'm wrong. It's not just black women in the book, right? Is it just black women?
Yeah, it's just black women.
Oh, okay. Because earlier you had said women of color. I wasn't sure if it was like all women of color or just specifically black women.
Yeah,
just because there are, it's not quite. It's still not really the same thing. But I've heard of like Latinos being involved in the natural hair movement to some degree as well. You know, which then bleeds into, you know, not lightening your skin and not, you know, blue eyes and that kind of thing. You know.
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of Afro Latinas now who are really getting into the natural hair movement, which is awesome. And there are a lot of like black Latinas in my book. So everybody in my book, except for Chloe, lives here in the U.S., but a lot of them are like first and second generation.
So they're all
immigrants.
Bantus, but not necessarily African Americans, or, you know.
Yeah, some of them are like Afro Dominican, Afro Colombian, etc. But yeah, so I mean, from what there are actually a lot of women in my book from Dominican Republic, and that has been really interesting to hear about. And I mean, America is obviously very racist and very problematic, and from what I've heard from like the Afro Dominican women in my book, DR is just, there's such a hierarchy based on skin color, right? So like the lighter you are, the quote unquote the better, and then the looser your hair texture, you know, the better. And they're just really like straighten your hair. That's definitely like the standard. And some of the Dominicans in my book have really, really sad stories about like what family members have done to them. Like one of the women, she's Afro-Dominican, and her mom physically forced like relaxing cream on her scalp, even though she didn't want it. And then another Afro-Dominican, she was talking about how when she went back to visit her aunt when she was little, or visit some family members in Dominican Republic, they like secretly placed some relaxing cream in her shampoo.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, which is just
Yeah.
Really sad.
That's dangerous.
To
That
me.
can break your hair off.
Yeah.
Like,
Jesus.
Yeah, and it hurts, right? I mean, I've never gotten a perm, but I heard that, I mean, especially for a little kid, right?
yeah, if you leave it on long enough, it will start to burn. When you first apply it, you don't really feel it. It just kind of goes on like cream. But as it sits there, like typically when I feel it burn my scalp, I'm like, okay, time to wash this out. Because, yeah, that can be really damaging. But it also depends on the strength of the perm that you get. Because I typically either get like a light or a normal perm, but if you get like extra strength, and I also get no lye. I don't do lye. Lye is really
I've
lye.
heard that.
Yeah, lye is what will take your hair out, and I think that's why there's this stigma around perm, where people are like, I don't want to use a perm because it'll take my hair out. Like in the movie What's Love Got to Do with It, you see Tina Turner get a perm, and it burned her hair off permanently to the scalp. Her hair didn't come back. That's why she wore wigs for the rest of her career. And
I didn't know that. Oh my gosh.
yeah, and things like that will have people scared of perms. But now there are companies like, I believe the company I use is called Olive Oil. And they make a no-lye relaxer, so it doesn't have that harmful chemical in it. And then if I use like a normal or something like soft, then, like I said, my hair's still curly. It's just a little easier to manage.
Okay.
So the burn is just, it's more of like a tingle. It's not super painful, but if what they're using, like they're sneaking into the shampoo and things like that, if they're using like a lye relaxer or a strong relaxer, then yeah, that's gonna burn. And especially if you're washing your hair in the shower, like your shampoo can get in your eyes, and that can be really dangerous, because the last thing you want is a lye relaxer in your eyes.
Jesus.
Like they're risking blinding her, like they're risking a whole lot. It's not even just as simple as straightening her hair.
I don't know if this is completely, I'm not sure, I don't remember where I got this from, but I just remember, I know a lot of things kind of come from, you know, accidents in the lab kind of thing, but I remember hearing something about the, like, relaxer being some kind of chemical thing that the military was working on for something, and it straightens black people's hair, cool, and it kind of, and that's how it became a thing. I don't know, like I'm saying, that's not, you know, nobody.
Well, that could be the lye product.
Okay.
That's interesting.
My mother told me when she was younger, there was actually this thing. It was really stupid. Like there were women that would get mad or jealous, like let's say their boyfriend is cheating on them, or some girl is trying to approach their man. So in response, what they did was like they would create this mixture, like some kind of concoction in a jar. It's lye and something, I don't know the chemistry, and I'm not going to tell the world anyway, because like y'all don't need to know.
Guys,
But they would like put it in this jar, and then they walk up on the girl and throw it in her face.
Oh my god.
And now she's scarred with chemical burns for the rest of her life.
So acid.
Acid, yeah. That's basically what
some
this
real
was.
complicated way to make acid.
And like the main ingredient was lye. Lye is a really harmful chemical, and that's why they had to start creating no lye perms, because things like the Tina Turner situation were happening. People were burning their hair off their scalp.
That's what happened to Malcolm X. That was one of the pillars of him changing, you know, and deciding, you know, I fuck white people because he was trying to get his hair relaxed, you know, and they were doing, I think it was like in his, it's depicted in the biopic with what's his name? Denzel Washington. But it shows them in the bathroom, you know, doing it, and the sink isn't working, and the shower's not working, and so he's running around trying to get this out of his hair, and he ends up throwing his head in the toilet to do it,
because
and that
it's
was
burning.
and that was one of the things where it was like, you know, I'm killing myself trying to get this straight hair, you know.
Yeah, and even when I feel a tingle, it's never that bad, because they had to change the formula. They couldn't keep putting that in people's hair.
Yeah, that was killing people.
Yeah, like if you feel like you need to throw your head in the toilet, you're putting a straight chemical on your head, like a harmful, this should be used for military use chemical. Like that's just not healthy, and that's why I say like my perm doesn't break off my hair. My hair's been growing amazingly, and I still use it traditionally. Like I use it all the time. Well, not all the time, but like New
all
growth.
the time.
I use it for new
Every
growth. And I've still been having like good hair growth. My hair is still healthy. It's moisturized. It's going in the right direction. Plus, the climate that I'm in keeps it moisturized. So it's really like you have to know how to do it, and you have to do your research. And I'm grateful that my mom does that, because she's like, we're keeping our hair on our head. That's my mom's thing.
Okay.
She wants long hair. She wants me to have long hair. She's like, we're keeping our hair on our head by any means necessary.
Okay. I'd say that, if anything, is the good part of this movement, you know, is that even people that are still relaxing, it's still not so, there's no desperation that your hair looks horrible if it's not straight, therefore burn it off your head to make it look better. You know, it's not so desperate at this point in time. I'd say at least that's an upside. You know? Yeah. But I don't know how to transition into this. It's time for plugs. We're not transitioning.
There's no transition.
Screw that. Plugs. So I wanted to let everybody know that I am still doing freelance drafting work. So yeah, I wanted to let everybody know that I am doing freelance drafting work right now, trying to make some ends meet, as well as, you know, just being more interested in writing. I've been writing most of my life, but this is definitely some part of my career that I'm really trying to push forward. So basically, if you guys are looking for, if you have a short story, a screenplay, or a novel outline, something that is outlined, at least it's in your head, something that you know is your story and you want it to get written, but you're not necessarily very good at writing. You know, I've met a lot of people who English isn't their first language, and so they have trouble with grammar, and they just don't know really how to get this on the page. And then also just that writing your first draft is really difficult, and every first draft gets edited heavily and changed drastically into the next thing. And so basically what I've done is that I've decided to kind of put out services as a ghostwriter of sorts, but just for drafting. And so if it's your story and you have an outline written, I charge $500 for short films and short stories, $2,000 for like a full 90-page screenplay, and then $4,000 if it's a novel. So we're talking 200 to 400 pages. And it depends on the amount of time varies, but it's just going according to your outline and your story and getting those pages written. And it's gonna be crap, because the first draft of everything is crap, but then it's yours and you have a solid foundation to move forward and make something happen. I've had a lot of people that are like, oh, well, that's crap, and if you can't write your own story, then it shouldn't be written. I think that everybody deserves to have their story written, which is why I have no issue being a ghostwriter for it, because it's not my story. You know, if you're like, hey, I want to make a ghosts novel, come up with something, then it's my story now. You know, now I'm actually putting in the work and coming up with something. It's yours. It's your storytelling. You just might not be a writer. That's not your fault, you know, that you don't have that particular skill. You know, I don't know how to unclog pipes, and calling a plumber doesn't make me any less of a person because I pay somebody to do something that's important. You know, that's kind of how I look at it. You know, there's a lot of art that involves you hiring other people to help fill in the blanks, and so that's something that I want to give out for people. So yeah. Also involved in us. Sorry, I kind of jumped into my stuff, but Bantucentric, the podcast that you're listening to right now. Please tweet at us. Let us know what you guys think about this discussion, the natural hair movement. Please also go to bantucentric.com/initiative. This is something I usually plug at the beginning, but basically we're trying to get the word Bantu to be something that's known, at least in the United States, kind of as a well-known term. Basically, it just means somebody of African descent. And so if you are interested, please go to bantucentric.com/initiative and send your friends for more information. So Shai, do you have any plugs?
I do. I'm still doing freelance photography and videography. My rates actually vary depending on the type of project that you want to do and the amount of hours that it will take. So I can't really give you rates over the podcast.
I want some definitive rates.
I need to know exactly what you want to do.
No. A big idea.
Like $5 million.
That's
since you need a number.
Guys. So that's the number she's charging you guys.
Since you need a number right now.
Not me. She's charging each and every one of you guys $5 million. So when she doesn't get any work, she'll know why. That's okay, guys. You know, you gotta start somewhere.
No, I'll charge you guys way less. He's getting $5 million. But so I'm doing freelance photography, videography. Some of the events that I have taken part in is wrestling matches. I just did a film shoot for an album cover where I did the shoot, and we're working together to edit the cover until the client is completely happy with it. Yeah. I've done birthday parties. I cover sporting events, any kind of event that you want covered. So definitely you can email me at CheyenneCfinch@gmail.com. And if you have any inquiries, I'm happy to discuss rates with you, discuss scheduling, and we can figure something out. I'm happy to work with you and your budget. And yeah.
All right, great. St. Clair, do you have any plugs that you want people to look up stuff?
Yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about this project that I'm doing, this photography book featuring Black women with natural hair, you can go to my website, which is www.dearchloe.com. So DearKhloe.com, dearchloe.com. You can follow us on Instagram at dear_Chloe. Again, Chloe is Khloe. And then the Twitter page is also at Dear Chloe, all one word. And if you go to the website, you can sign up for the newsletter to hear more about the book and when it's going to be released and pre-ordering and all of that good stuff.
All right, great. Any other projects? Anything else you're doing?
So most of my time has been like this book. Mm-hmm. But I do have a documentary that I want to work on after this, which is a documentary about love, not just romantic love, but love in general. I'm reading Bell Hooks' book all about love right now, and so that's been really inspiring. So in the future, be on the lookout for that.
Okay. Nice.
Well, speaking of future, I don't know if you were going to do this, but whatever.
Well, well, kind of just to, since this episode's been about, like, your project with your book and everything going on, I just wanted to know what are your goals? Like, what are you hoping this book will achieve in the community, achieve for you, besides letting your sister know that she's beautiful and helping her to feel beautiful in her own hair, her own skin? What else do you hope that this book will do?
So I want this book, like you said, I want it to make Chloe feel more confident, but I also want it to inspire Black women and girls around the world, because this is, the natural hair movement, it's something I think that, at least in part, is going on, to a certain extent all around the world. And I want Black women, for example, who aren't natural, or who think that their natural hair is not good enough. I want them to know that their natural hair, they don't have to go natural, but that their natural hair is beautiful. I want them to know and understand that it is beautiful. And I want them to see themselves represented. And then for the Black women, I know there are a lot of Black women, like I said, including myself, who sort of go back and forth in terms of sometimes I like my hair, and then sometimes I also just get caught up in the European beauty standards. I want this book to be an affirmation that despite what the world tells us, our hair is beautiful. And there's so many different things about our hair that make it beautiful. It connects us to our ancestors, the way it takes in light, the way it protects us from the heat, there's so many different aspects of our hair that make it beautiful. For Black women and girls, I want it to be sort of a confidence booster. I want it to be a learning experience. And I had a lot of fun making this book, and so I want my readers to feel that same joy when they read these stories and see these pictures of Black women. And even if not, even for people who aren't Black necessarily, I want them to learn about the Black experience, to learn about the Black female experience, to take the time to educate themselves. And so I also hope that this book can be used as an educational tool as well.
Okay.
Great.
That's great.
Thanks.
Well, we want to thank you, St. Clair, for this book, for everything that you're doing. And we'd also like to thank you guys, the listeners, for listening to Bantucentric. My name is Buck Rivers. You can find me at Mbaku Rivers on Instagram and on Twitter. You can find Bantucentric at Bantucentric on pretty much any different networks, as well as our benefactors, ImagineOnly Productions and Gifted Sounds Network at ImagineOnly Prod and Gifted Sounds, respectively. And you can find Cheyenne Finch at
Chey Productions, that's CHEY Productions, on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find my work on CheyenneFinch.com.
Great. And where can they find you one more time, St. Clair?
So my personal Instagram is St. Clair Detrick-Jules, STCLAIR DETRICKJULES. I have a very long name.
I'm just surprised you can recall all them letters. I'm not good at spelling anything with my own name.
Yeah, and then Dear Chloe, www.dearchloe.com. That's Chloe, KHLOE. Instagram, Dear_Chloe, and then Twitter, Dear Chloe, all one word. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I think I got it all. Yeah.
Cool. And one thing before we head out, as briefly as you can, and complete honesty, this is something that I've decided to start asking our guests. As far as the Bantu Initiative, do you know the Bantu Initiative?
No, I'm not that familiar with it.
Well, basically kind of what I explained earlier, just that we feel as though having a term that can connect Bantus, people of African descent, one term would be very beneficial to our community in a way that the word white isn't offensive. It just it's shorthand for people of European descent, whereas if you were to go up to a random white American and say you're European, they might feel a little different about that because they don't really necessarily connect with the continent of Europe, or the term Asian just being that you're a person of Asian descent. And as long as you're not trying to be, offensive when you say it, people in the States understand that this is the umbrella term, but you might be from Korea, you might be from Japan, you might be from China, you might be from wherever, but amongst themselves, they still have their personal identity, their nationalities, but this is kind of an umbrella term. I feel like the word African sort of means people from the continent, and the term black means a lot of negative stuff that people have attached to it. I don't feel as though we have a term that Bantus worldwide kind of say is like, this is what it is, and it's not what society has told us it is. And so we'd like to use the word Bantu because in the States it's not a term that people know, but then it's not a term that people have any negatives toward. In your personal opinion, do you think that is actually helpful to our community?
I think that, short answer, yes. I think that, I think it's good to have multiple terms that we're able to identify with. I think, a lot of people associate black with negativity, but I think part of the cool thing about black people, I feel we're really good at sort of reclaiming words, reclaiming labels. I'm black and I'm proud. And I know for example, a lot of Latinos, like negro, black there is often used as an insult. And so I know Latinos who are like, no, I identify as negro, negro or negra, as a, you can't take my identity, you can't take this marker and make it bad. I'm reclaiming it. But I think it's great to have multiple, Bantu, black, African American, Afro-Caribbean. I think those are all really positive, and I am really happy that you guys are doing this.
Okay, great. But we've gotten some opinions on both sides of the fence, and so when we have guests, I do want to ask people, what their personal stance is. We've had people that completely disagree, and so it's like if you do, your voice should be heard, because you're a Bantu, and that's, also I feel like you can't there are a lot of people I feel that have kind of stances on stuff, but it's like I'm not gonna let it be challenged by anything, you know? And I want to specifically be like, in 20, 30 years when we're hopefully still doing this, it'll be like, this is a stance that we've put to the fire, you know? And so we believe it because we do, and not because of some crap we came up with when we were in our 20s, you know? But yeah, again, thank you for being on this show. But yeah, unless there's anything else to be said.
Nope.
Then as always,
Stay woke.
Stay Bantu.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.
What?
Bantucentric is brought to you by ImagineOnly Productions.